A and B are exploring, they're on an expedition, and they are the ones who found this statue for the first time. Okay, so they have no information on it whatsoever. Okay, so now A wants to get close to it, to inspect, to take a closer look. Now B, on the other hand, is a little bit scared. Okay, B thinks that, what if it moves? What if it's alive? Okay, so A is going to start today's conversation by saying, okay, well, if that's the case, don't come, I'll go by myself. We're going to use a 다리 쓸 거예요. If it is that scary. Okay, so this is how you would say it in Korean, right? Of course, it, the statue, or the idea of getting close to the statue, if it's that scary to you, well, don't come. I'll go by myself. Okay, now, of course, the first thing that we have to do whenever we see a bridge is to identify whether it's a reverse bridge or not. And of course, yes, if is a very typical example of a reverse bridge. So we're going to have the order between the blue and pink sentence reversed, right? Exactly, reverse bridge. So we're going to start with the pink sentence, the pink 문장. Okay, so of course, no it. Of course, we know what we're talking about. Do not take into consideration is, am, was, were, are. And we have the adverb that. And we have the predicative adjective scary. And of course, another thing that you have to keep in mind when you see a bridge, when you are using a bridge, yes, is the fact that a bridge is never an independent standalone. It has to become a part of the word right in front of it as its ending. So we're going to give scary the if ending. Okay, so let's start here. Now, before we actually start placing the words, okay, now, today, let's expand on our vocabulary a little bit. Okay, so now, I always emphasize this, right? When you're learning vocabulary, if it's too simple, such as, well, how do you say that? Well, this is how you say it. Goodbye, see you next time. Now, that's a shortcut. Yes, now that lured you into a shortcut and the bait was called convenience. And what is usually waiting for you at the end of that shortcut? Yes, poetic Korean is waiting for you. Okay, drooling, thinking about its new prey. Okay, so now of course, let's talk about that then. Now there are in large two reasons why you would say that, right? You could say that to specify, right? What you're talking about. No, I'm not talking about this, I'm talking about that. No, I don't want this, I want that. Okay, so when you're specifying, but you can also be using it simply to talk about degree, right? Degree of some kind of quality. Oh, is it that spicy? It's not a little spicy, it's super spicy? Oh, really? Is it that spicy? Okay, so you can also use it to talk about degree. Okay, so when I say we're going to learn more versions of that, I'm talking about when you are talking about degree. Okay, now, of course, what is the most, let's say, base form of that you can use when you're talking about degree? Is it that cold? It's not that cold. Okay, yeah, usually you would use 그렇게 or 저렇게. Right? These are the base forms in the sense that they are not necessarily tied to any kind of a specific nuance. Okay, so of course, whenever you're using a word that means or includes that, you always have to know which version to use, right? There's always going to be a version that starts with G, and there's always going to be a version that starts with J, right? Okay, so they are actually the adverbs like that, like that. Okay, so you can use it in a lot of ways, right? Because they are adverbs that mean like that, you can also use it like this. For example, this is me, I'm talking to my friend. And let's say someone is using a shovel to dig a hole. Okay, so now let's say if my friend says dig a hole, how do we do that? I can say, well, do it like that. He's doing it. Do it like that. So I can say 저렇게 해요. Okay, so yes. Now the reason why I'm using 저렇게 instead of 그렇게 is because, yes, the J version is used when whatever that is describing is not closer to the listener and not closer to the speaker either. So it's roughly equally located away from both of us. That's why I'm going to use a version that starts with J. Anyway, the main point is that, yes, they are the adverbs like that. Okay, so, or I can say, dig like that. 저렇게 파요. Okay, but anyway, so these adverbs like that in Korean are also used with adjectives when you're talking about degree. When you're saying it's not that cold. Okay, so, or is it really that heavy? So for example, if I'm gonna say, is it that heavy? I'm gonna say, 그렇게 무거워요? Of course, inflection route number 1, right? You have to know how 무겁다 became 무거워요. Okay, so you, of course, nothing works without inflection. So 그렇게 무거워요. Okay, so yeah, I can use 그렇게 or 저렇게 in this case as well. These are the base forms. But once again, as I just prefaced a little while ago, let's expand a little bit. That's not too fun, right? Only knowing how to talk with no specific nuance at all. That's not what we human beings do. Okay, so today I'm going to use a very specific version. 정. That. Okay, so how is it so specific? Now, this version of that is usually paired with some kind of a feeling, some kind of emotion, and it indicates that the person who is feeling that emotion at least tried to fight it, to fend it off. Okay, so if I say, don't come if it is that scary, and I use this version of that, then yes, I'm saying without saying, hey, I know you tried to muster up courage to approach the statue, but if you really can't do it, even if you tried to fight it and fend it off, then it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Don't come. I'll go by myself. Okay? Does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Wait, let me just open up this can of Pepsi. I need to jazz myself up a little bit. Okay, so now I cannot stress this enough. Now, some of you must have heard me say this 9,000 times, but in real life situations, nuance is everything. Okay, so let's close our eyes and let's think about how things can really well, let's first finish the sentence, I'm sorry, and then I'll get back to it. Okay, so sorry about that. So 무섭다. Of course, the display form of scary. Okay, but I don't want its display form. I don't want the 다 ending. Okay, so I want the if ending. So let's go to inflection route number 2. Okay, so we have the be situation, which is quite annoying, right? So, in the be situation, you have to once again divide the situation into 2. When you have verbs, and when you have adjectives. Right now, we have an adjective, 무섭다. Okay, so what do we do in this case? In inflection route number 2, if you have a display form of an adjective that ends with B, once ta is removed, well, outside of enlarge 4 exceptions, you apply a 4-step formula, right? If I had one of the 4 exceptions, I would have applied a 3-step formula. But once again, 무섭다 is not one of those exceptions. Okay, so let's apply the 4-step formula accordingly then. Remove ta, remove the B, and then place the irregular middle section 우, and then now you can attach the ending to the 어. You can attach the ending. So now what do we have? 무서우면, 무서우면, 무서우면. So if scary. Okay, now let's actually place it in the 문장. So you always have to stay sharp on inflection. As you can see, nothing works without inflection. In other words, also known as conjugation, right? But there's a very specific reason why I don't like using the word conjugate, the term conjugation, right? But they're used to indicate the same thing. 면, okay. So, 정 무서우면, if that's scary, and then, yes, don't come. Now let's cross the bridge, 다리 건너요, and let's go to the blue 문장. Of course, there are 3 ways to place don't in front of a verb, right? And we specifically need method number 3, right? We're not going to use method number 1 or 2. We specifically need method number 3. And what is method number 3? Yes, to use a no route ending. How convenient is that? Thank you. Exactly. I'm going to use the no route ending. What does that mean? It means that all I have to do is remove 다 and immediately attach it. Yes. 지 마요. 오지 마요. Okay, exactly. Method number 3, right? Because method number 3 is the version that you use when your sentence is an imperative, when you're telling the person not to do something. Okay, so yeah, I'm telling B not to come. Don't come. Okay, so 정 무서우면 오지 마요. 정 무서우면 오지 마요. 정 무서우면 오지 마요. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Okay, so now once again, let's go back to this specific version of that just a little bit. So I said in a real life situation, when real people really use language to really feel and understand each other, that's called communication, right? Just saying a couple of verbs and adjectives to a wall, that's not called communication. Okay, so if that's what we're doing, communicating, then nuance is everything. So let's take a look into now why I would sometimes, yes, with a very specific purpose, choose to use this version instead of the base form of it. So now, when someone, let's say, is quitting, they give up. Well, let's say in this situation, if B really wanted to get close to the statue to inspect, he really wanted to, but it's just too scary. So in that case, if I just use the base form, there is room for my sentence sounding like, hey, you're just a quitter. Yeah, you quit at the first sight of an obstacle. That's what you always do. Yeah, you don't even try. You don't even have the grit to even try. At the first sight of a challenge or obstacle, you give up right away. Yeah, that's who you are. That's your character. So, of course, I don't want to sound like that, right? And also, I want to comfort this person by saying, without saying, well, I know you tried. I know that you tried. Hey, don't worry. Yeah, anyone can give up on something. What matters is that you tried, and I know that you tried. So, by choosing to use this version of that, I can do all of that without actually saying what I just said. So, it completely changes the nuance, therefore completely changes the conversation, and therefore completely changes the relationship. So that's why not understanding nuance, yes, does not really help you when you are really communicating with real people that you build relationships with. So always focus on nuance. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? To what B has to say? Okay. So, yes, B is too scared to get close to the statue. So B is going to say, now they might suddenly attack. Okay, so once again, now today's situation is it's 1392 or something like that. A and B are the ones who first found the statue, so they have no information whatsoever. B thinks that it might be alive. Okay, so B is saying, yeah, I'm too scared. They might, of course, I'm talking about they or it. Yes, let's say there are a couple of these statues. They might attack. So I'm going to take the verb attack and give it the might ending, right? And of course, in the middle, we have the adverb suddenly. Okay, now, of course, let's first place suddenly, 갑자기. Now, the base form is 갑자기. Okay, now, but what if I want to be a little bit playful? Now, I can use a version that looks like this, 갑작스레. So let's slowly get used to, slowly but surely, playing around with words. Now, what do I call playing around with words? Yeah, just simply changing a couple of vowels and consonants to just change the nuance a little bit. So, yeah, suddenly, 갑자기, but if I say 갑작스레, this carries a little bit of a playful, mischievous tone to it. Okay, so right now, I don't think B is being playful or mischievous, so we're not going to use it, but don't be thrown off if you hear it or see it. Okay, so 갑자기, because, well, first, let's finish the sentence, I'm sorry. Okay, so 공격하다, attack, a version of attack. Of course, I don't want its display form. So now I'm gonna give it two endings this time. So now you all know that if we're gonna use two endings or even three endings at the same time, yes, now we have to know the display forms of endings as well. Okay. So actually, we all know that all endings also have display forms, right? Okay, so first let's give it the might ending. So right now, yes, the might ending belongs to inflection route number 2. The big two of them. So we know what to say, right? 감사합니다, because first we get a free pass. 공격하다. Because the rules in inflection route number 2 is that the rules are if a display form ends with a vowel, once ta is removed, then you just immediately attach the ending, right? Okay, so what are the big two might endings, the big two? So this time I'll show you the display form of them. 수 있다. 지도 모르다. Okay, so you can use either one of these two endings. And yes, the second one is a little bit more specific, right? 수도 있다 can be used in all cases usually as might. But 지도 모르다 usually is used in a negative context when something negative might happen or something negative might be the case. Okay, so of course, being attacked by a statue, I don't think it's positive usually. So we're going to use 지도 모르다. Okay. So what are we going to do then? 지도 모르다. Inflection route number 2. Yeah, there's not much to do, right? We get a free pass. So I'm going to remove 다 and then immediately attach it, right? How convenient is that? Now imagine what poetic Korean would feel like. It's much easier, right? Because usually no route endings belong to poetic Korean. So, of course, this is not a no route ending, it belongs to to, but anyway, we are in a situation where, because it ends with the vowel, we can immediately attach it. And what are no route endings? Endings that you can immediately attach to anything in any situation. So, unfortunately, no route endings, they belong to usually poetic Korean. Okay, so yeah, free pass. 공격할지도 모르다. So I have the negative version of might attack. However, I have the display form of it, so I cannot use it right now. It does nothing. Okay, so this time, yeah, I said most no route endings belong to poetic Korean. I never said all of them. So let's use a no route ending. I think it's been a while since we've used this. 잖아요. 잖아요. Okay, so it's a no route ending, right? Which means that you can just simply remove 다, immediately attach it. How convenient. Okay, so what does the 잖아요 do? Once again, do not fall into the trap of translation. We're not going to translate it into a word, right? It's not a meaning word, it's a function word. Okay, so it imbues the nuance of I am saying something that you already know or at least should know. Okay, so 공격할지도 모르잖아요. 공격할지도 모르잖아요. 공격할지도 모르잖아요. Okay, so I'm saying they might attack, and come on, you know this too. Come on, look at it. What if it attacks? Okay. So B is saying, come on, am I the only one scared? You should know this too. Look at it. What if it attacks? I don't think we can fight it off. Okay, so 공격할지도 모르잖아요. Okay, so now we have the whole 문장. So at first, 천천히 읽을게요. Okay, so might attack. And of course, I just imbued the nuance of I'm saying something that you already know as well, or at least you should know as well. So I'm basically saying, you're not that naive, right? Come on, you're not that naive. You know this too. They might attack. 갑자기 공격할지도 모르잖아요. 갑자기 공격할지도 모르잖아요. 갑자기 공격할지도 모르잖아요. Okay? Does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Okay, so now let's go back to what I just said about suddenly. Yeah, you can do it with most words. So, with most adverbs, adjectives, and well, usually it more so happens with adjectives and adverbs. Now, but it can happen with all words. So you can play around with almost all words, simply changing a couple of vowels and consonants to change the nuance a little bit. Okay, now I'm pretty sure that we all have a similar experience, this kind of experience, or at least we understand, we can relate to it. So, you know when you kind of want to befriend someone, but you don't want to be immediately straightforward and say, hey, I want to be friends with you. Can we be friends? Because, well, it could be a little bit awkward, especially if the person says no, right? That's super awkward. So I want to be, very subtle with it. I want to kind of gauge a little bit. Does this person like me? So yeah, I want to take steps, right? I'm not just going to walk up to him and say, hey, let's become friends, best friends, come on. Yeah, so I'm not going to do that. So now that's when Koreans can kind of throw subtle jabs to feel whether this person is willing to befriend me. So that's when they subtly throw out these playful versions of words. But put yourself in their shoes. Let's say you are trying to kind of like throw these subtle jabs to get like a reaction out of them. And if you get a reaction, you're going to take it as a sign that they are willing to befriend you too. But what if you get no reaction whatsoever? Then of course, that's going to deter me a little bit. I'm going to think, okay, I guess they don't want to befriend me, become friends with me. Okay, so that's what happens a lot. Now, a lot of Koreans, for example, let's say someone walks in. Well, I talked about like a very typical example, like with warm, right? So, 따뜻하다, the base form of warm. Now, what was the mischievous, playful version of it? 따시다. Or the cozy version, 따숩다. What was the almost hot version? It's not just warm, it's almost hot. 뜨끈하다. And if it's almost hot plus mischievous, playful, then it's 뜨시다. The poetic version is 따사롭다. Okay, so if someone comes to me and says, oh, it's so warm in here, and if they say 따시다, then I can immediately tell that, oh, you don't want to be like too serious with me. You're willing to be a little bit playful with me as if we're friends. So I can immediately tell their energy towards me. So because they used this version of warm. Okay, but if this person is throwing subtle jabs at me to get like a reaction, let's use this version a little bit and see his reaction. What if this person throws this 따시다, but I, with a face like this, say, well, yeah, it's 따뜻하다. Then he can kind of sense that, oh, okay, you don't really, match my energy. I was trying to be a little bit goofy with you so that we can, be friendly, but I guess you want to be serious, so we can feel each other that way. Does that make sense? So that's why playing around with words is very important when it comes to nuance. Well, welcome back. Thank you. Okay, so yes, and this is why I say when it comes to listening and understanding, yes, don't really trust vocabulary that much. What do I mean by that? If you are so fixated on the idea that I should be hearing 따뜻하다 as warm, then if you hear another version, you might be thrown off. So, to a certain extent, until you are aware of all versions of all words, now trust your guts a little bit. Trust your guts and the context. So if you feel like, well, I think according to the context, it should be warm, but I didn't hear 뜨타다. I heard 시다. What is this? Is this completely a different word? Then I guess I don't understand it at all. Do not second guess yourself like that. Trust your guts and the context, because you might be just listening to a different version of warm. Okay? Now, let's take a look into what A has to say. Now, B said, what if they suddenly attack? Now, is A going to say, oh, you're right. That's actually scaring me too. Let's not approach it then. Is that going to happen? Or is A, going to stick to his plan? To get close to the statue and inspect. Yes, it's going to be the latter. Okay, now we're going to use a bridge. 다리 쓸 거예요. A is going to say, you achieved something. I'm sorry. What's happening here? Only if, let's write it here. Only if, there is bravery. Okay, so now we did talk about this a couple of times. Now students who take private classes, they at some point have to go through a chapter called bundling. Okay, so it means, sometimes you can say something with one word in this language, but you can't in that language. So you have to bundle up a couple of words to say that same thing. Okay, now brave is also a very typical example of it because, yes, there are adjectives that mean brave. Yes, there are. 용감하다 or 용맹하다. So 용감하다 is usually the version that you would see. I mean, you could see, but there is also 용맹하다. Okay, so people could say, well, why can't I use these words? Why do I have to bundle up a couple of words? The predicative adjective there is and the noun bravery. Why do I have to do that? We have adjectives here. So 용감하다 is extremely poetic. There's no way around it. It's extremely poetic. And 용맹하다 is not necessarily poetic, but it's very, very, very dramatic. So it's usually used when a soldier showed valor in a battlefield or something like that completely changed the trajectory of some kind of a war or something like that. That's the only time you say 용맹하다. So it's too dramatic. Okay, so we come to the conclusion that we're not going to use them then. So that's why we're just going to say there is bravery. Of course, in me. If I'm going to say I'm brave, I'm going to say there is bravery, of course, in me. So, and of course, only if is also a reverse bridge, and a bridge has to become a part of the word right in front of it as its ending. So we're going to give the predicative adjective there is the only if ending. So first, let's place the subject. Sorry. 용기, bravery, and then 있다. There is. Okay, but I don't want the ta ending, so let's go to inflection route number 1 to go get the only if ending. Okay, so yes, we have a situation where we have a display form that ends with the S consonant once ta is removed. in this case, outside of enlarge 6 exceptions, I'm going to apply a three-step formula. If I had one of the 6 exceptions, I would have applied a 4-step formula, but it's not one of the exceptions. Okay, so remove 다, place 아 or 어 as the irregular middle section, and then 드디어 you can attach the ending. Okay, so right now the ya ending, that's the ending that we're trying to use, right? The only if ending, a bridge ending. Okay, yeah, so remove 다, of course it's going to be 어, it's not going to be 아, right? 있어야. Okay, now we have exactly only if there is 있어야, 있어야. Okay, exactly. Sorry, let me push it to the right a little bit. Okay, so now we have all the words for the blue 문장 and 다리 건너요. So cross the bridge, 있어야. Only if. Okay. However, now I have all the words for the blue 문장, but I think I can give the subject a subject particle for 2 reasons, possibly. So, of course, depending on perspective, you can say more reasons can apply. That's subjective and that depends on the context. Okay, so of course, I am not going to give a subject a subject particle just because it is a subject. That's poetic Korean. Okay, right now, I'm going to place it for reason number 1 and 2, pinpointing and frustration. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about reason number 2, frustration. Now, when I say frustration, it doesn't always have to be like the very, very serious type of frustration, right? It can just be like a casual, playful type of frustration. Like when you're saying, come on, hey, come on. Of course, we need to be brave, come on. So, yes, it doesn't have to be too serious. So, yes, we are going to imbue just a little bit of a playful nuance of frustration. Okay. So let's make it look a little bit less serious than usual. Like a little smirk. Okay, so you can tell that the frustrated face is not as serious as usual, right? Okay, so 용기가 있어야. And also reason number 1, pinpoint. So, now, what did I say about pinpointing? I said, when you feel like the focus is misplaced, it should be here, but it's placed here. You should be focusing on this, but you're focusing on that. I think your focus is misplaced. And in that case, when you're saying, no, don't focus on that, shift your focus point to this. So when you're shifting focus point, then you are automatically carrying a pinpointing nuance. Okay, because I can't just tell my friend, hey, don't focus on that. And my friend says, okay, then focus on what? I'm not going to be like, I don't know. I'm not going to be vague, right? When I'm shifting focus point, I'm really specifically pinpointing. No, it's not that. It's this that you should be focusing on. Okay, so let's say we're doing that because B thinks that the most important thing when it comes to expedition is equipment. Let's just say that. B, yes, spends most of his time on checking equipment. A, on the other hand, is a little bit different. A thinks that the most important thing when it comes to expedition is an adventurous spirit and bravery. Okay, so A is saying, hey, your focus point is always on equipment. I think we have to shift your focus point. It's bravery. Okay, so that's why we are carrying a pinpointing nuance as well. So I'm going to give the subject a subject particle for 2 reasons. A little bit of frustration and to pinpoint. Okay, so 용기가 있어야 only if there is bravery. And then, of course, I'm talking to you or just people in general. Yeah, people achieve something only if there is bravery. So you is not that important. Okay. The verb achieve and something. I'm also going to keep the object because, yeah, I'm going to give the object an object particle for the same reason, right? A little bit of frustration. Okay, so now this is also what I always say, right? The 5 W's can become the 5 S's. What do I mean by that? What, when, who, where, why? These 5 W's can become the 5 S's. So, 뭐, that can be what, can also be something. That's what I mean by a W becoming an S. In the same vein, 누구, who, can also become someone. Of course, we are excluding all poetic versions. Okay, so I'm going to place 뭐 as the object something. And of course, we know that this double vowel right here does not sound like 워 as it should. It sounds like 오 when, well, in two cases, right? When the consonant is an M or J. Okay, so we happen to be in one of those two situations because the consonant is M. So therefore, I'm not going to give it really a 워 sound. I'm just going to give it a O sound as if it is written like this. Okay, so yes, it should be 무, of course, technically, but it's going to sound like 모. Okay, but once again, I'm going to give it an object particle. Why? Because I'm imbuing the nuance of frustration. And yes, I can give it the vowel version, 뭐를. Okay, the 를 is the vowel version, right? When the object ends with a vowel. But for convenience, you can abbreviate it, right? You can make it shorter. Just the L as a 받침, and it's the same thing. 몰, 몰, 몰. Okay, so I said something. And also, I imbued the nuance of a little bit of a playful frustration. Okay, sorry, not enough space. Okay, and then now achieve, a version of achieve, 성취하다. 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 Okay, a version of achieve. Now, I don't want the 다 ending, right? I don't want a display form. Now this time, I'm also going to just use a nuance ending. So do not translate this word. It's not a meaning word, it's a function word. Okay, so what's the no route ending that we can use to imbue the nuance of course into a sentence without saying of course? I don't think I have that video at the moment, but maybe in the future I can make one. Ellie. Okay, do you remember that no route ending? Yes, I'm not going to actually use the word of course. I'm just going to imbue the nuance of it. Yes, it's the no route ending. Therefore, all we have to do is remove 다. I'm sorry, I gave away the answer. Yes, exactly, 주. Remove 다 and immediately attach the no route ending, 주. Exactly, yes. 주 can do a lot of things, right? And one of the things that it can do is to imbue the nuance of course into a sentence. Okay, so yes, so I'm imbuing the nuance of course. So now, without actually using the word of course, A is practically saying, hey, come on, of course you achieve something only if you're brave, only if you're brave enough, only if there is bravery, come on. So that's what A is saying. 용기가 있어야 뭘 성취하죠. 용기가 있어야 뭘 성취하죠. 용기가 있어야 뭘 성취하죠. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Okay. So now we have the full 대화. Oops, I'm sorry, I may have stepped on it. So we have the full 대화. Let's take a look into how it looks like if there is no pause in between. Okay, so at first 천천히 읽을게요. Okay, so at first 천천히 읽을게요. 정 무서우면 오지 마요. 갑자기 공격할지도 모르잖아요. 용기가 있어야 뭘 성취하죠. With more 속도, speed, 정 무서우면 오지 마요. 갑자기 공격할지도 모르잖아요. 용기가 있어야 뭘 성취하죠. With extra 속도, 정 무서우면 오지 마요. 갑자기 공격할지도 모르잖아요. 용기가 있어야 뭘 성취하죠.